some decisions today for some recommendations for decision. Whilst formal voting arrangements are in place for those, simple majority in most cases with the mayor in majority, we seek to continue the inclusive practices that we've developed across our time as a combined authority, where we strive to achieve broad agreement wherever possible. Members of non-constituent councils and associate members are welcome to contribute on any items during the discussions today. Please, could everybody make sure that phones are switched off, and a reminder that now that we are live streaming, continuing to be here in your attendance is giving your consent to that. No known fire alarms planned, and you've just heard the safety briefing as well. So I will start the meeting with apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Nadine Peatfield, who is substituted by Councillor Carmel Swan. I'm not aware of any other apologies. Declarations of interest, again, I'm not aware of any declarations specifically for today. So I'll move on then to public participation. We've got 3 questions received from members of the public, but I do believe that one member of the public is here, Mr. Hewitt. Mr. Hewitt, can I invite you to come to the seat in front and to read out your question, please?
I've got voice assist now, apparently. Ian Hewitt from Nottingham, and a member of the EMCCA coalition, which is organised through the Regional Friends of the Earth group. So I think you've got the text, but I'll read it out. We note that the Trump administration was reported on the 8th of January to have withdrawn from over 60 international organisations, including the International Panel on Climate Change and the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Further to our question of 31st of October last year to the Transport and Digital Connectivity Committee, we note that data centre development in the East Midlands featured prominently in the press following the launch of the Tech Prosperity Deal with the US, though this has since cooled as onerous trade constraints have been introduced by the US administration. We note further to our question of the 11th of September 2025, we were told that digital connectivity and inclusion strategy had not progressed as far as had been hoped, and we were going to be invited onto that as stakeholders. Since the Trump state visit in September 2025, the government ministerial team dealing with the devolution agenda has been dismantled following the resignation of the Deputy Leader, Angela Rayner. It is now clear that the US government is heavily influenced by the tech bros who are driving data centre development as part of a rush to artificial intelligence, which is fueling an investment boom widely expected to crash disastrously. We've seen reports of a second data centre proposal adjacent to the former Ratcliffe Power Station site, in addition to that for Cottam. We note that the government is consulting on the relaxation of planning guidance for data centres with on-site power generation, and have indicated that
we have the infrastructure to deliver. My ambition is to harness the potential of our region by working alongside partners and local authorities to make the East Midlands the best place to live, to work and to learn. Ensuring that our industrial assets, particularly our former coal-fired power stations, serve the communities that they are based in is absolutely essential. We know that they have the potential to generate energy in new ways for a new era, and we will support the future-proofing of sectors that will bolster our economy. These sectors include advanced manufacturing, clean power generation and advanced computing. The energy capability and the economic strength will go hand in hand. This is true also for the development of data centres, where the case for small modular reactor development is supported by the proposed data centre development, linking clean energy production with high demand end uses. It's important that those data centres support the East Midlands and UK economies as well, but we need to secure our future energy system, as it is this that will bring energy security, lowering the cost of energy and decarbonising energy so that we can meet our climate change objectives. Locating data centres alongside low-carbon energy sources is therefore a sensible principle, because those energy sources are needed by communities and businesses here in the East Midlands. But I understand your question to be one how we consciously design out the potential harms of new data centres. Energy is one part of the picture, but so too are environmental considerations like the availability of water. These broader considerations will take place at a strategic level when we consider both the spatial development strategy and influence regional energy strategic plans, as well as through the role we might play in the development of such sites. In the event we are successful in securing an AI growth zone, a governance structure will be created to support the designated zones. Mr. Stewart, do you have a supplementary question?
If I could, Mayor, thanks for your answer. We're pleased that the authority has signed up to our climate promises strategy, and we were pleased that you showed support for that. And to quote you, I will, if elected, to use my powers, funding and influence to deliver the actions necessary to tackle climate change and nature emergencies and to build a fairer society for all my area. Unfortunately, what we're seeing from across the pond on our screens on a daily basis is the sort of culture that emerges when the tech bros, the people that run the social media sites and the people that are funding this artificial intelligence that is the major application for data centres, when they get full reign. And the disturbing outcome is from the people that I am interested in reading about, that look at these measures across society, that we might be funding at very expensive Trojan horses for an emerging techno-fascism. And are we conscious of those developments that we see in the US being mapped across to the East Midlands?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Hewitt, and obviously supplementaries need to relate to the original question, but I recognise that your broader concerns, but I hope that I can assure you that I remain committed to putting this region first, the people in this region, and the commitment that I made both to grow our economy, but to do so in a way that recognises some of our environmental challenges, the climate change, the nature and biodiversity, and the importance of inclusive growth. And I believe that everything that I have done and this combined authority has done to date demonstrates that we are and will continue to put the region and the people of this region first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We move then on to the minutes of the last meeting. Board are invited to accept the minutes as a correct record of the meeting. Happy to do so. Thank you. Moving on to the mayoral update. I'd like to start today by thanking Rolls-Royce for hosting us at this amazing aerospace campus today. And Rolls-Royce are such a key employer in our region, not just here in the Derby area, but indeed right across the region, particularly because of what they do to support greater growth and in the supply chain. And it's an absolute delight to be here today. But these surroundings also remind us what's important about the work that we do together at EMCCA. We use our shared resources to create an environment in which regional, national and international businesses can thrive and grow. And our people who establish these businesses, who work hard as part of them and who live in our region, they expect us always to put them first. So I'm pleased that EMCCA, under this board's leadership, has always done this. And I expect us to continue to put the people of this region first and foremost in everything that we do, and it will continue to be my priority. It won't surprise you that it's been another very busy month and a bit, and I'd like to share some highlights with you. Staying with that theme of creating a very strong and coherent environment for businesses to thrive, I was pleased to deliver a piece of work alongside Mayor Richard Parker as part of the compact between the East and the West Midlands, the Defence and Security Blueprint for the Midlands. It sets out the Midlands' initial response to the Strategic Defence Review and Defence Industrial Strategy, positioning our region at the heart of national delivery, delivering innovation, accelerating SME growth, developing a skilled workforce and attracting investment. And I'm pleased also to be co-chairing the new Midlands Defence and Security Industry Council alongside Chris Spicer, the Managing Director of Babcock, an international defence company based in Walsall. Working back and looking through to December, I travelled to Everton's new Hill Dickinson Stadium in Liverpool for the last of mayoral council. It was the first to be chaired by the Secretary of State, Steve Reed. And it was an opportunity for England's mayors as a cross-party group to push for change to the Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill, which is currently making its way through the Lords. And it will set the future path for devolution for several years to come. I do believe fundamentally that devolution offers us an opportunity, not just in this region, but across the country, to take power and control from Westminster and Whitehall and to bring that into our region so that we can make the decisions that are right for us and we can prioritise the spending according to our own needs, not the needs that are determined by others who don't understand our region. And I'm very pleased that devolution agenda and legislation will enforce and support that position. That day was indeed a very long one, and the football theme continued that evening as I was back to another football ground, the City Ground in Nottingham, for the launch of the Trent Sports Quarter concept, and also supporting the position that the club have taken in pursuing their ambitions to deliver an even bigger, better stadium for their fans and for the community at large. I do believe that this will be achieved through the work that we all put together, particularly if we can bring together the Trent Sports Quarter across not just what we can do through the convening powers and I can do here as Mayor, but working with all of the councils, with Nottinghamshire County Council, with Nottingham City Council, and indeed with Rushcliffe Borough Council. I was pleased to sign a strategic place partnership with Homes England last month too, which is the government's housing and regeneration agency. This is how the agency formalises its partnership with mayoral strategic authorities and ensuring that it works closely with us on our ambition to deliver 100,000 new homes over the EMCCA area. Nottingham and Derby residents also received a very early Christmas present with the launch of the new Ride app, a government-funded platform that brings together a host of integrated transport information and ticketing options for the two cities in one handy place. But I can also say, as a Nottinghamshire resident, and indeed I believe as Derbyshire residents, there is value in it too, because many of those bus routes and travel routes go outside of the cities. I'm already getting really positive feedback from residents on it, as I'm sure the local authorities are too. But it does give us a glimpse of how things can and should be joined up across our region, and I'll be keeping a close eye on how it works, as this will be a critical insight into how we develop the Mayor's transport plan. And in this month, I had just last week, a very atmospheric and misty walk along the path from the river from Radcliffe-on-Trent into Nottingham on my loop. It's fast approaching now, I think, 100 miles mark, and I've used that time to meet people across our region with a variety of different interests and different perspectives, and see at first hand the beauty of our region and indeed some of the challenges that walkers and cyclists and others face. My aim is to get back to Buxton by the end of April, and I hope that the Great British winter will be kind to me over the next few sections, particularly given Buxton's very well-known own microclimate in the area. And on the same day as that, I was delighted to join Amy, the Chief Executive, on a visit to Rushcliffe Borough Council, having been invited by Councillor Neil Clark to spend some time with them to view their priorities for EMCCA as a council. And it was a great opportunity to visit many parts of our towns across that bit of the region. I've also had an opportunity to be in and out of London, talking to ministers and others, and making the case to the Chief Secretary, to the Prime Minister, about how it's important that any opportunities for big national and international events are brought out into the regions. And we've already had that opportunity when we hosted the Mayor's Council in September at Chatsworth House, and I was reminding them that Chatsworth House is a fantastic location for such international events, and indeed we have many others throughout the region that they should look at. I'm happy, of course, to take any comments or questions on my mayoral update, should you have any. Councillor Doddy.
Yeah, it's great to see you out walking. You get into all these fantastic football stadiums. Have we been to Nottingham Forest as a council yet? We haven't, have we? For this.
Oh, I see what you mean. Oh, you mean for a meeting?
Yeah.
Well, there's a good idea, we can certainly ask them if they would like to invite us.
When you got your sort of blue sky glasses on, and you're looking at the ambitions for devolution, and we see that to a large degree health was devolved under the integrated care service, etc., with the multi-billion pounds. What do you see in devolution in terms of health for East Midlands Combined Counties Authority? What's your ambitions? A big public health grant, movement of money from the NHS? How do you see health being sort of folded in to the clear strategic development of EMCCA? Thank you.
Thank you, and that's no easy subject, is it? But what I would say to you is my ambition is to make this region a region where people feel that their health is improved, not just by the things that we can control in terms of transport and skills and jobs, but actually the access to health in many different ways. And we're already doing some of that in the work that we have with our Get East Midlands working plan, where we're working with the DWP and the ICB and the NHS to help people, often not just with physical health challenges to get back into work, but also with mental health challenges, and some similar themes in that with the work that we're doing on the Youth Trailblazer, again targeting young people, many of whom have got some anxieties and mental health which has, for whatever reason, precluded them from work to date, and it's incredibly important that we get them back into either education, training, or employment. I think there are opportunities with further devolution to have a much closer relationship with the health service. That does not mean that the mayor should be running the health service. I've done some of that in the past, in a previous role. But I would say that it's hugely important that we have aligned ambitions to make our population healthier, whether that mean broader public health terms or indeed in the way in which people get access to health. It's why, as you already know, I was very disappointed that decisions were made around the ICB clustering that perhaps diluted some of that. But we are working with what we have, and I am very clear in my intentions that Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire and our two cities will have a focus of this mayor on health in every way that we can. And we've started some of that through last year, a workshop that we've held with all of our partners and the Combined Authority and your authorities as well. And there's more work to be done on that. So I can assure you that I'm very committed to working closely on that. And indeed, there will be further opportunities, we believe, as mayors in the devolution legislation to have perhaps more handles on those levers. And we are engaging with government on that matter.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments? No? Okay. Thank you. I'm going to move then on to item 6, which is the budget, and I invite Richard Williams, our Executive Director of Resources, to come and present the budget.
Thank you, Mayor Clare, and good morning, Board. By any measure, this is a significant budget for the combined authority and for the region. It comprises planned revenue expenditure of 226 million and capital investment of nearly 290 million for 26-27. The highlights of the budget include significant expenditure on skills and employment, economic growth and development, housing and regeneration, and support for the arts and visitor economy. EMCCA is becoming the regional transport authority and having direct responsibility for public transport in the region, services, people and contracts transferring from the constituent councils. The budget includes the first 184 million tranche of the Transport for City Regions capital investment allocation of 2 billion over 6 years. This will include at least 22 million of investment in public transport in 26-27. The budget includes a significant increase in the allocation of funding for highways maintenance to our constituent council partners of up to 120 million. And the budget also builds the capacity and capability within EMCCA to deliver across these range of programmes and services. We presented a draft budget to Board at the end of November and made the caveat that we were still awaiting some significant funding announcements. So therefore, since that draft budget, the most significant announcements that were not included in the draft budget but are now included in the final budget are the announcement of a mixed capital and revenue local growth fund targeted at mayoral combined authorities in the Midlands and the North. For EMCCA, this is worth 108 million over 4 years. It provides flexible funding for investment in infrastructure, business support and skills development. Proposals to deploy this funding are being worked on by officers and will be presented to Board in due course. We had confirmation of revenue bus grant of over 20 million to support regional public transport. This is fixed for the next 3 years. And we have received additional highways maintenance incentive funding worth an additional 20 million allocable to constituent councils. And finally, 3-year funding of 1.5 million across 3 years to support the regional effort to tackle homelessness and rough sleeping. In presenting this budget today, I'd like to extend a word of thanks to our Overview and Scrutiny Committee for their diligent work in scrutinising this budget. The committee met informally to scrutinise key aspects of the budget on the 11th of December and reviewed the budget changes at their meeting last Thursday. I am required as Section 73 officer to confirm the robustness of the estimates and the adequacy of reserves. As I set out in Section 8 of the covering report, I am satisfied on both counts for the reasons I set out in the report. The statement also gives me the opportunity to draw members' attention to any significant financial risks, which I do. The recommendation is to approve the budget 26-27 and MTFP, and this includes setting the public transport contribution and levy requirement to fund transferring public transport services. These are subject to final adjustments, but in the main are the quantum of numbers for that public transport contribution. There are still some funding announcements to be confirmed, and we therefore propose to present an updated revised estimates to Board in July. Many thanks.
Thank you, Richard. comments, questions on the budget? Councillor Rini.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have a briefing note from my officers here, very positive about the budget, and we're happy to support it. They just point one minor wrinkle out. The DCC levy for transport is 16.25 million, which is precisely the same amount as the cross-boundary services with Manchester. There seems to be some minor invoicing issue. I think we're picking up Manchester's side of the bill as well. So subject to that minor technical issue being sorted, I believe we're happy to support. If you could contact our officers to clear that up.
Absolutely, and rest assured, Councillor Rini, we've been working closely with your officers and we are aware of that technical adjustment that's needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Graves.
Thank you. Bearing in mind, you know my stance about this authority when I first stood. I think I'm bound to make a point that obviously, whilst we're doing some good work with EMCCA, and I understand all that, we do have to recognise the fact that costs to the public purse in the running of this authority, which is something that never happened before this authority started, and I just wanted to raise that as a particular issue. In the transport policy, the transport that we're taking over, one of the things that I also wanted to sort of highlight is the fact that, yes, the transport section has been handed over to EMCCA, and that is very welcome, I think. But it's noted that that EMCCA doesn't take over the home-to-school transport, particular for SEND, which is probably the most difficult part of it, because in most authorities it's in deficit. And it's a shame that that didn't go, and wonder whether that was a political decision or not. However, talking about the transport levy, which I think Councillor Rini mentioned, we did come together the other, was it last week before, I can't remember, time flies by, and we did agree that we would go for the option 1, which we've all accepted. However, what it does do is it leaves a bit of a hole for the following years, and I think it's something that we will need to consider as a group to how we will resolve that, and I hope that all authorities will give that some consideration and deal with that as a matter of urgency. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Graves. Richard, do you want to come back on anything?
Yes, just very, very simply to confirm, Councillor Graves, that we are very alive to the issue that you raise, and indeed place directors will be working very closely alongside Section 151 officers immediately after this budget to start thinking about the implications for 27-28. And meetings are already going into the diary.
Just on the home-to-school transport, it's not public transport, and therefore, again, officers can correct me if I misunderstand this, but we don't have a choice. It stays legally with the authority, and therefore it isn't a political choice about whether or not we take it or otherwise. Having said that, there are clearly opportunities for some routes of school transport, as we've seen with what West Notts have done, where they have determined, even though that's a college, they have determined that it was better, rather than having their own routes, to use that money to fund public routes that therefore gave both public opportunities as well as their students. So there are school opportunities rather than in the future within a public transport system, rather than the responsibility of school transport, if that makes sense. And, yes, Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to say, I think we've mentioned it at these kind of board meetings previously. If we didn't have EMCCA, we wouldn't get the devolved power, we wouldn't get the additional money. So, you know, as leaders of councils, when we get the additional money, we're saying, brilliant, thank you very much. But I think the issue is if we didn't have EMCCA, and we've kind of seen where we've got other combined authorities and they're more established, and I know the Mayor's pushing for them powers to be able to get even more money in the region, because we all agree the East Midlands was a region that was forgotten about. If you think about our transport, Nottingham's got best transport outside of London, but if you look at the rest of the area, it's poor. And I know when we talk about additional money coming in, a lot of people are just talking about potholes. I know they're a big issue, but that doesn't help you with the connectivity. So I'm just going to put that argument to bed about the importance of having EMCCA. And if we didn't have it, we wouldn't have this additional money coming in, and we've all benefited it, even just on transport alone.
David Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I just drag you for a moment down my wormhole of inward investment and business support and the visitor economy? Those various ecosystems are currently running on fumes, but they are pretty healthy fumes by the standards of what we thought we might find. I commend, or absolutely commend, the efforts the officers are making to make those fumes as effective as possible, to top those fumes up and to reorganise, and I think that reorganisation is healthy. But the one bit of imploring I would do is, let's keep up the pace. I know we are applying that pace, but those organisations are, again, as ever, facing their April cliff edge. So let's keep at it, folks.
Richard, did you want to come back on any of that?
Yeah, and absolutely, again, very alive to the issues that you raised, David. As you know, and in the draft budget, we've committed 2.4 million for the next 2 years until we get that operating model embedded. That has remained within the budget for the time being.
Councillor Lilly.
Thank you, Mayor. I do support this report and the significant allocation of funds to capital programmes which will positively affect the people of the East Midlands. It is good to see the major increase of finance for highways, because I think we all accept that potholes are a huge issue. And as for the public purse costs, I think it's easy for anyone to see the major funding that the mayoral authority has brought to the East Midlands, which has begun to make a real difference and will continue to do so over many years.
Councillor McKeown.
Thanks, Matt. Just within the budget, just welcome sort of the additional money that we're having a look at in terms of sort of culture, arts and tourism. I think particularly the announcement the last week or two around the Women's Tour de France coming through our neck of the woods. I think it's a welcome decision, but we obviously need those bodies in place, continuing to be in place, to be able to support any benefits that we can gain from that. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay. I mean, I would obviously reiterate that we've had £120 million extra coming into this region as a result of having, just alone in the last year, let alone the big settlements, the 2 billion on the transport settlement. And all of that is as a result of having a mayoral combined authority. A combined authority without a mayor does not get access to that level of funding. And fundamentally, that is a benefit for this region and for the people who live in this region. So without further ado, I'm going to put the recommendations to the board. We have approved the budget 26-27 and medium-term financial plan 26-31 as set out in this report. Note that it covers the revenue budget for 26-27 and the medium-term financial plan to 2031, the capital programme for the next 5 financial years to 2031. Approve the movement and use of revenue and capital reserves as set out in this report. Approve the setting of the baseline public transport contribution, the transport levy, for 26-27 at 60.72 million. The levy required for 26-27 payment at 55.24 million, and the allocations to the constituent councils as set out in this report and in Appendix C. Delegate to the Executive Director of Resources the finalisation of public transport contribution to determine the baseline public transport contribution and the levy requirement for 26-27 in consultation with the Section 151 officers of the constituent councils, and to report back the final position with the revised budget estimates to board in July 26. Note the agreement to set the budget ahead of constituent authorities' budget setting, and in doing so there may be further changes to the funding positions and the final levy payments. A revised estimates report will be presented to the board in July 26, incorporating any changes, including anything arising from the 25-26 outturn report. As you know, I usually try to move our board in the culture through consensus, but as this is a budget report, I am actually going to ask you, the constituent councils, to give a show of hands in support, first of all, of the budget. Those voting in favour of the budget, please show. Those against? Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll move on then to the next item, which is the mayoral budget 26-27. Richard.
Thank you, Mayor Clare, and thanks again, Board. So, for transparency and legislative reasons, the mayoral budget is presented separately from the main EMCA budget. The budget is to fund the Mayor's office, including staffing, supplies and services and travel. There is a modest provision for mayoral initiatives, but recognising that the bulk of such initiatives are funded from the main EMCA budget. The mayoral budget, or the mayoral office budget, is financed using 1 million of EMCA's Provisional Mayoral Capacity Fund, which is a government grant of 1.5 million provisionally. In terms of my statement, Section 25 statement, I am satisfied that the estimates that underpin the Mayor's budget are robust and that the accumulated reserves shown in the report are adequate for the period of the MTFP. And the recommendation to Board is to approve the mayoral budget.
Thank you. Any comments? Or can I therefore put to you the budget on the same basis? All of those in favour, please show. Those against? One abstention. Thank you. That has been passed. Can we move now on to item 8, the local government pension scheme, employee discretions policy. Invite Richard Williams to introduce this paper.
Thank you again, Mayor Clare. So the paper, which is kind of quite a technical paper, but it seeks board approval of EMCA's local government pension scheme employers' direct discretions policy. This is a statutory requirement of all LGPS employers, and as we mature as an organisation, we're now presenting this to you as our own policy. So EMCA is required to formally set out how it will exercise both mandatory and discretionary pension decisions in a way that is transparent, consistent and financially robust. And they're set out in the appendix to the report, some examples of those discretions. That has a benefit for staff well-being, but it also gives us, as EMCA, a modest...
Any comments or questions on this? Therefore, invite you to approve the recommendations. All of those, you're happy to approve? Yes? Right. Thank you. We'll move on.
Our procurement. In many ways, a direct commissioner and deliverer of programmes and services. The strategy ensures that we are compliant with legislation, notably the Procurement Act 2023, and with national guidance, including the latest National Procurement Policy Statement. Fundamentally, it commits us to deliver public value in our procurement activity. The strategy allows us to take advantage of new legal flexibilities which the government has announced and which will be enacted later this year, such as to reserve below threshold contracts to local small and medium-sized enterprises and to voluntary organisations, therefore boosting the local economy. It also sets out our proposed approach to working with local suppliers and ensuring that where possible, the EMCA pound will have a positive impact within the region. The core principles of the strategy include public value, transparency, inclusive access, sustainability, social value, and strong governance. It embeds our legal obligations as well. We are introducing, as part of this procurement strategy, a supplier code of conduct in such matters of our expectations of, for example, suppliers paying their subcontractors promptly, and also builds in modern slavery safeguards. The recommendation is to approve for further consultation and engagement ahead of the implementation of the strategy. Audit and governance members have already been consulted, and comments have been received, noted and obviously responded to. Further consultation is planned after today's board with business and community representatives and with constituent and non-constituent councils.
Thank you, Richard. Councillor Graves.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I did talk to you before this meeting, and I have issued a suggested alterations to some of the wordings of the strategy to officers last week, and on the basis that this is a consultation and we are actually, it's not actually the finalised version of this, then I'm happy to accept it as it is, provided the comments that I've made are taken some seriously, and that we maybe come to some happy amendment. I have noted that some of the comments that have come back are talking about legislation, and I don't believe that anything that I've written there contradicts legislation. What it does is it just uses slightly different words. Now, the reason that I've suggested this to this
Councillor
committee.
Graves, can I just ask that you perhaps give a little bit of detail, because the challenge that the public will have will be not understanding the points that you're making, because they won't see any of those. So if you want to just set out the points that you were raising.
No, that's fair enough. I'm just conscious that what I didn't want to do was take up a lot of time when I know that there's going to be a lot of more discussion about this behind the scenes, if you like. So, for instance, there are references to net zero, climate resilience, clean growth and carbon reduction. Whereas I think what we should do is we should look at ensuring procurement decisions are driven by value for money, affordability and service delivery, rather than political or ideological targets, while remaining compliant within the environmental law. So that's the sort of flavour of some of the things that I've mentioned. There's one about inserting the sentence at the start of the deliver public value section and the principal sections. Value for money for taxpayers shall be the primary objective of all procurement activity undertaken by EMCCA. This is to provide clarity that cost, quality and deliverability take precedence over secondary policy objectives. If we don't put these things in, what happens is they can be interpreted in a different way. That is the purpose of my document, and it is quite a there's quite a number of items there. Do you really want me to go through them all?
No, well, I mean, what I wanted you to do is to at least be able to explain where you're coming from some of this, because clearly members of the public who are watching this wouldn't understand your principle on the point you're making from the way in which you were talking earlier.
I mean, the fundamental process of this is that we don't waste the money that we do have on providing the services and that through you we are providing. And I think it's very important that we make sure we maximise the value for money and to the taxpayer, etc.
I'm going to bring other people in the discussion before I'll comment. Yes, Kath.
So, firstly, I'm delighted to now see the modern slavery element as part of it. We will need a statement, but I just wanted to say it does change the way that you invest. So, having used it at the university, you know, it does give public a challenge to us as an organisation on how we are investing ethically, and clearly changed investment priorities in terms of large organisations. So the only thing is I would ask is that we bring the statement back for authorisation. Not that I'm a voting member, but I think we need a statement that would align, because I think it's easier for people to know what our statement is, because it doesn't need to be absolutely everything, but I think aligning to a statement that we could all fulfil would be important.
Councillor Barton?
Is it on?
Yeah, thanks.
As Nottinghamshire County Council is one of the leads, obviously, on this consultation, I think it will be a sensible approach to take councillors' views on board and move them forward, like Councillor Graves has already said, so I'm more than happy to do that, without going into loads of detail here and delaying it like Councillor Graves has said, but I fully support it.
Councillor Peacock.
Thank you, Chair. Notwithstanding the fact that this is probably going to come back to us after consultation, my view is the core principles as outlined on page 70 of the document fully align with what I see as the people of the East Midlands priorities and the things that they want to see EMCCA achieving through such procurement strategies. I think if we talk about things like climate change or decarbonising our economy, my personal view, and that's a view born out of conversations and consultations in all manner of ways, certainly with the people of Newark and Sherwood, but I think that goes wider than that, is that things like climate change, decarbonising our economy is one of are two of the important economic and social imperatives of our time, and to dismiss them and to dismiss the things that EMCCA does as simply as a transactional because of money or what we get for our return. I think there's a longer term element to that. So I welcome the diversity of thought to that, and I welcome the document when it comes back, and I'll also welcome that robust exchange that we have at that moment in time about those things.
Thank you. Councillor Radford first.
Thank you, Mayor. I welcome this, and I particularly welcome the supplier code of conduct. I think on the point of social value, I'm pleased that it's in there. I think the last thing we'd want is a sort of Wild West approach where we had a race to the bottom and smaller independent firms were muscled out by the larger, bigger players. I don't think that's very good value for taxpayers' money. And overall, I'm in favour of anything that keeps money in the region and invested in what people want to see. On the point about net zero, I'm quite keen that those areas would remain in there. I think it's about the environmental sustainability of the region, the job creation, the investment that it attracts, and I actually think that it's an asset, not a liability moving forward. And I think what we really want from this paper is the best for the people in the region, offering the best deal for residents, not for profit margins. But I'm very happy with this report.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. I won't repeat what colleagues have said, but on page 70, it talks about the EMCCA pound. Every pound spent through EMCCA should seek to deliver economic benefits for the EMCCA region, prioritising local suppliers, and I think that's very important and actually feeds into all the things that some colleagues have said today.
Thank you. Kim?
Thank you, Mayor. Very much welcome the procurement strategy, particularly like the emphasis on maximising the EMCCA pound, investment in small, medium enterprises, voluntary and community sector. I think that's absolutely essential if we really want to achieve what we've set out to achieve as a region. I think it's great that we're moving to support local economic development as well, social values, social impact as part of this process, and absolutely make sure of the really best use of the Procurement Act 2023. Really happy to support in any engagement and stakeholder engagement that we're going to have from here, but I certainly think the sector will welcome it, as will the SMEs in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Doddy.
Yes, indeed, a very interesting document in a state of evaluation, I think is what Councillor Graves was saying there. And under no circumstances would we dismiss the aims and objectives about ethical and development and equity, etc. But at the same time, when you juxtaposition equity and various clauses against value for money, there is always going to be a trade-off. And I think to be successful allows you then to be generous with regards to your approach to equity and diversity, and therefore there has to be that balance between the two, which is I think what Councillor Graves was trying to put across, that to accept that these are the overriding principles at the expense of success, which could then allow us to use our savings in other areas, would be fundamentally wrong. And therefore we're not dismissing anything, we're merely saying that at this stage of the development that we need to look at that juxtaposition, need to look at that balance so that it works for all people in the region. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McEwen.
Thanks, Mayor. like other colleagues on the board, sort of, I welcome the social value and the talk around the EMCA pound. I think just for me, probably the only bit that's sort of missing to my mind, in a sense, in terms of the core principles, the mobilise and control statement and the supplier code of conduct, is just something around timeliness. If we're giving out these contracts, and particularly a number of these contracts, they will be either building or sort of road-related, sort of timeliness, sort of in expecting our suppliers to sort of deliver things when they say they'll deliver them, and what the process is. That if that doesn't happen, I think should also flow as sort of we just need a little bit of a key statement on each of those within those three parts of the document. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Swan.
Yeah, I think it's a great outline for a strategy. There obviously will be an opportunity to put some flesh on the bones as we work through the process, but really pleased to see on page 69, thinking about nature-based solutions. I think this gives us a real opportunity to not just do the same as we've done before, but actually do something different. There is a real opportunity in terms of growth in the green economy, and I would like us to be at the forefront of that. So I hope as we build the strategy that we get that real opportunity as a region to develop that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Mayor. We support the recommendations. Nobody knows more about best value than Nottingham City Council with our improvement journey. And best value isn't always about money, it's about outcomes. So I think you've got to remember that, and it's not just weigh it up with the penny. You've got, some people disagree with the environment matters. Doesn't matter, but it does if you think about the future and where we're going and the whole climate stuff. So I just think when you think about best value, don't just think about the money.
Thank you. Councillor Graves, you want to come back in?
Thank you. I just wanted to make it clear to committee members and yourself is that the amendments that I put forward do not weaken the procurement standards. They strengthen them by restoring focus on value for money, transparency and fairness, and ensuring that procurement remains lawful, competitive and accountable to residents rather than driven by political agenda. I just wanted to make it clear that I'm not against the policy. What I'm just saying is I think there should be some amendments that will make it better. Thank you.
So the recommendations are as set out before. There will be further stakeholder engagement. Fundamentally, this procurement strategy allows us not just to make the most of the EMCCA pound, but to make the most of the public value in the way in which we drive change across our region. And I think that is a fundamentally good thing to do. But ultimately, of course, we need to make sure also that we get best value. But best value is that broader term, as Councillor Khan said, and not just how much it costs. So thank you for that. Can I, therefore, Richard, is there anything else you want to pick up from the comments that were made?
I think just the one, if I may, Mayor Clare, the point made about timeliness, and I think that is really important in terms of expectations of suppliers. So we have put in the procurement strategy our expectations of things like payment of subcontractors. What is not in here is our contract management approach, and that's the thing that will set the KPIs, the outcomes, the timeliness, and so on. So that's not deliberately in here, but clearly we will have a robust approach to contract management. Absolutely.
Thank you. Therefore, can I invite you to approve all of the recommendations? Happy to do so. Yep. Thank you very much. Agreed. Let's move on then to item 10, report of the IRP. Sanjeev.
Thank you, Mayor Clare. Good morning, Board. This report presents the recommendations of the Independent Remuneration Panel, which was established by this Board in June 2025 to carry out an independent review of member allowances at EMCCA. Members will note that remuneration at combined authorities differs from that at local authority level, where schemes are broader. There are also specific legal provisions that prevent remuneration to councillors who also receive allowances from their constituent councils. The panel's review was therefore focused on what is lawfully permissible, but also considered the Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill that is expected to be enacted later this year, and the opportunities that will bring to address some of the legitimate and understandable concerns raised by members as part of the review. The report before members sets out the panel's findings following a comprehensive review, including interviews with members and benchmarking against comparable combined authorities. The panel also had benefited from considering the development of member roles within EMCCA during the first year and how they have been delivered based on our unique position as a county combined authority and the individual footprint of our region. Sorry, my computer's gone. Apologies, bear with me, my screen's frozen. The key changes proposed by the panel that can be implemented within the current legal framework are set out at paragraph 3.8 of the report, and these payments are to vice chairs of the authority's regulatory committees and to substitute members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, as well as the indexation of existing allowances. Members will note that the role of Deputy Mayor, although recommended for remuneration, is not remunerated at EMCCA, as the adopted scheme permits a Deputy Mayor allowance to be payable only where the Deputy Member is not also a leader or elected Mayor of a constituent council. The panel have suggested an increase to the Mayor's allowance to better reflect the Mayor's growing responsibilities, workload and regional profile. The panel also noted the Government Scrutiny Protocol, which states that members and substitute members appointed to Combined Authority Overview and Scrutiny Committee should be remunerated. The panel has therefore taken this guidance into account in formulating its recommendations. Unlike Overview and Scrutiny Committee, there is no equivalent provision regarding the remuneration of substitute members of Audit and Governance Committees. Alongside the panel's consideration of existing allowances payable under the current legal framework, the panel also considered the opportunities to review the scheme following enactment of the Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill later this year. The panel, in considering these changes, also made recommendations for remuneration to realise these opportunities. The panel's proposals are set out in paragraph 3.9 of the report, and members will note that remuneration relating to special responsibility allowances is contingent on the passing of the bill and accompanying statutory guidance. Members will also note that where a member holds more than one role that qualifies for a special responsibility allowance, only one allowance should be payable at any one time, being the allowance of the highest value. In that context, the figures referenced in the report related to special responsibility allowances under the bill are indicative only. The final amounts will be subject to consideration of statutory guidance, which will include how overlapping roles and dual mandates are to be treated in practice and remunerated, and therefore recommendation B of the report seeks to delegate authority to the monitoring officer in consultation with the chair of the IRP to agree the level of these allowances. Members will note, however, that this level cannot exceed the indicative figures that are set out in the IRP's reports, but the bill does provide an opportunity for EMCCA to consider special responsibilities as part of a remuneration review. As the panel has completed its work, its report must be presented to the board. Also, presenting the report now rather than awaiting enactment of the bill allows budget provision to be aligned so that payments approved or enabled later this year can be consistently applied from June. Following the enactment of the bill and statutory guidance, EMCCA board may convene a further panel to consider the bill and the full options and opportunities for the application of special responsibility allowance to constituent authority members. This would provide an opportunity to address concerns regarding remuneration payable to combined authority members to provide better parity that reflects their roles. The full independent remuneration panel report is attached to the report, and I move the report to board, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Questions, comments? Okay. Happy to accept the IEP report. Oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor Donny.
Merely to say that when you look at independent renewal panels and you look at their role, when they were looking at county councillors' work, they based the remuneration on the fact that they thought that county councillors work 20 hours per week, or half the working week of a normal working person, and 10 years ago set a level at that, reflecting 50% of the work, and reflected that as such. In fledgling organisations such as this, I think the Mayor will be the first to agree with me that the workload becomes exponential. If she thought that this job was going to be a nice, quiet, easy job or anything like chairing Kingsmill Hospital. I can only imagine that your workload has exceeded every single thought that you've ever had, even thrown the walking in the 100 miles, and you've still got 50 more miles to go. So I think that this is one of those things that politicians tend to look to what looks best for the public rather than necessarily what's best for the organisations, etc. And I welcome this report and the reflection of the sheer volume, which is only going to increase, of the work of all the partners sitting around here. And you only have to look at the 170 pages that's sat in front of us to read. So I welcome the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Doddy. Councillor McEwen.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a question, sort of, and it may be my misunderstanding of it. It mentions specifically sort of the ambassador roles and that no allowance should be paid. But does that role still get sort of travel expenses? Because I would imagine we're expecting our sort of active travel ambassador to sort of be making extensive use around the region, and you know, you wouldn't want them to be out of pocket for that. Thanks.
Yes, Councillor McEwen, members can submit claims for travel expenses. So that would be for business to relating to their role. So because in that capacity he will be acting in that role, then will be entitled to claim expenses.
Councillor Khan.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Happy to approve and support the recommendation. I do feel, though, if, for example, if we want EMCCA to succeed and it talks about the deputy mayor, not if they're a leader, they don't get paid. Well, you know, in Nottingham, we've had our review of the council pay looked at overall, and the Independent Remuneration Committee has actually said that if you do additional work for EMCCA, then EMCCA should pay you, not the City Council. So I think there's a bit of a grey area, and I think it's, if I'm honest, if you want the best out of EMCCA and you want one of the leaders to be the deputy mayor and they don't actually get paid for it, then if your salary comes from the council, then I don't think you can, you know, leave your day job and actually focus on EMCCA and get the best results. So my only argument would be here to obviously look at that element of it, and if we want the results, then I think we've got to, you know, and I know it's to do with the bill and everything, but I would say that we need to put that argument forward.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Yes, that particular provision is a specific provision in the EMCCA regulations. For that to change, that would require a change to those regulations. So it's not something that was within the remit of the panel to make any recommendations on by virtue of it being a specific provision in the regulations. But the point is taken, I understand.
I agree with you. I think it becomes very difficult to ask a deputy mayor to step in and do the sort of level of work that they may have to do and not be remunerated for that role and expect them, therefore, to make that balance between what they're doing and their job as a leader of a council. And I think that, you know, hopefully we will see that provision changed in the legislation. Councillor Hazelgrave.
Just wondered if there'd been any thinking about maybe at some point having a youth mayor and deputy mayor for the EMCCA region as a way of mainly galvanising the youth voice to look at things in a more strategic view about the development of the area rather than maybe just their own local youth mayor or mayoress or deputy mayor. And I just wondered if that were ever to be part of the thinking. It would be a big job for a youth mayor to be, you know, representing the whole area in terms of the physical geography and distances. But it would be actually, I think, quite a clear demonstration that the youth voice is something that we value. So I've just wondered if there were any thoughts about that. I mean, that could then be part of the remuneration issues if it were ever to exist.
Well, first of all, it's not part of this IRP report and therefore isn't relevant today. But I would say is that we have established a youth committee, and that youth committee is doing that role of bringing people and the views across the region. And I would suggest that actually that is a better way for us to engage with more young people, particularly given the size of this region. And that is the preference that I would have. Okay, are we happy to approve the IRP? Yes, thank you. We'll move then on to item 11, which is the calendar of meetings. Yeah, is item 11. Calendar of meetings. Any comments? Happy to consider those? Is there anything you want to... Yeah, Sanjeev.
Thank you, Mayor Clare. This report presents the proposed calendar of meetings for the 26-27 municipal year. The purpose of this item is for Board to consider and approve the draft calendar so that the EMCCA Board can plan its business effectively for the year ahead, for its committees, for its Board and advisory boards. Just a couple of principles that I wanted to draw out, Mayor Clare, that have involved the shaping of this calendar. In particular, officers have consulted widely with constituent authority partners to ensure that meetings as far as possible can avoid any conflicts with council or cabinet meetings within their own councils. Particular concern has been given to pre-election periods and also party political conferences and LGA conferences, and we've also applied some consistency around the meeting times. But in general, the work that has been done with our partners has been in that regard to ensure that there is as minimal conflict as possible and recognising the busy roles that members have at their own authorities.
As I'm sure you'll understand, it is a real challenge to get dates that fit and avoid some of those key points in everybody's calendars. So, you know, we are very grateful to you for accommodating, for working with us on that. You happy to approve? Yep. Okay, thank you. So on to the next item, which is the transparent decision making. Sanjeev.
Thank you, Mayor Clare. The purpose of this report is to provide additional transparency of decisions that have been taken by the Mayor or officers outside of board meetings exercising their delegated authorities. Details of the decisions taken are at paragraph 3.3 of the report, and members will note that there have been 2 mayoral decisions, 1 officer decisions and no urgency decisions. The decisions taken and confirmed in this report have been published in accordance with the authority's publication scheme, and where decisions are key decisions, they are also subject to call-in. I present the report to Board with the recommendation to note the decisions taken.
Okay, happy to note? Yeah, thank you. Let's move on then to item 13, which is the EMCCA submission to the Local Innovation Partnerships Fund. I'm inviting Diana to come, our Director of Economic Growth and Innovation. Before I do, just a reminder that there are 2 papers. There is essentially, as we've done before, there's the paper on the board strategy in principle, and then there's a paper which is in the part 2, which is through the detail of some of the partners that we might work with. If you wish to raise anything on the part 2, please advise me, and because this is essentially the last item, we will then move into a private session. If that's not the case, and we're happy to have a broader discussion led by Diana, then we can conclude the papers without going into a private session.
Brilliant.
Diana.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today. So I'm going to start by just giving you a bit of background to the paper. So innovation is one of the 6 enablers in our East Midlands Growth Plan, and we've got specific aims around innovation to increase our investment in innovation facilities, to increase the percentage of innovation funding we're getting, particularly from UKRI and other national pots, to use our innovation-rich clusters, these high-value sectors in our growth plan, to drive innovation growth, and then really importantly, to engage more of our small and medium-sized businesses in innovation to make sure that they are innovative and can bid for global contracts. So in order to deliver on all of those ambitions, we need a pipeline of programmes, projects and bids, of which this is just one opportunity, and we will expect that there'll be others coming forward as part of our innovation work. So the paper draws out that we plan to work with your offices, with universities and the Innovation Advisory Board on an innovation priorities framework. And the idea of that is that we get into the how. What are the projects and the programmes that we need across all of our sectors to enable growth, innovation growth? And it's important that we do that because one size doesn't fit all. So the interventions that we need for creative and digital, for example, will be different to the ones that we're looking at in this lift bid and different to medtech. So just moving into the bid itself, the lift bid is a £500 million UK RI fund, and its aim is to grow innovation clusters that are aligned to the industrial strategy, so particularly the IS8 sectors. Through the fund, so far, established MSAs who have had integrated settlements have got ring-fenced amounts from this fund already of at least 30 million. Other areas that haven't received that, including EMCCA, have to go into a competitive bidding phase. And so this paper is asking you to note that we need to bid to get allocations from this LIFT money, and it's asking you for permission to submit a bid. Now, as the board timelines don't align with the bid timelines, we're asking that you delegate authority to the Executive Director of Innovation and Strategy and Inclusive Growth, working with the Innovation Advisory Board to make sure that expression of interest is right and that bid is as strong as it can be. To help you do that, we've provided an appendix which gives you a draft of the thinking and the focus around the bid. That is confidential because it's a competitive fund and there are private sector partners in the mix in the bid. So happy to talk about that, but we'll need to go into private section. But what I can say is the cluster focus. So the bid is going to focus on the intersection between advanced manufacturing and clean tech, because they are areas where EMCCA is seen as very strong and we can maximise opportunities. And it's going to focus on the types of intervention that maximise knowledge transfer from our universities into industrial application. It's going to focus on how we can leverage foreign direct investment and working with our industrial partners to get more of their supply chain here. And so a very specific one on how we can work with our local supply chain and advanced manufacturers to capture their portion of these industries that are going to be growing exponentially in the next decade. So just in terms of the process to date, the Innovation Advisory Board have been really helpful to help us get a focus on this. Each sector in the growth plan was asked to kind of put a two-pager forward. The Innovation Advisory Board assessed all of those, and the best fit for this LIFT bid was selected, which was the focus of advanced manufacturing and low carbon. They also suggested that we need this wider investment framework to make sure that creative and digital and cultural areas and medtech also now start work to get a roadmap of what works for them going forward. After today, we will continue to co-create the draft with our universities and our industrial partners. It needs to be submitted on the 12th of February, and we're meeting with the Innovation Advisory Board on a weekly basis at the moment to refine and get that right. If we're successful with government's readiness checks through that expression of interest, we'll be asked to submit a project portfolio by May or June. We can bid for up to £20 million. In order to access that, we need to have match funding from the private sector of at least 3 times that. So this is a huge opportunity, but very complex as well. I'll leave it there for any questions.
Thank you, Diana. Questions? Yes, Kath.
Just a comment, no questions. I do think having EMCCA has been incredibly positive in getting sometimes disparate universities' thought processes together, but also disparate industry thought processes together. And I think the benefit is not just for me as the representative for universities and spoken to the VCs, but for different layers of an organisation to understand the value of being able to influence that growth plan for EMCCA. So huge thank you to EMCCA and the team, and particularly to Diana and Damien for really taking up the challenge of working with often challenging but passionate university staff.
Thank you. Councillor Graves?
Yes, I just wanted to say that this is an excellent paper and fully supportive of it. My only question is, can you just confirm how the constituent authorities are going to be engaged in this process?
Yes, so we're using the technical officers group to brief on innovation. So they know about the LIF opportunity. We'll be circulating the latest draft of the bid to them this week. And on the innovation priorities work going forward, we will hold workshops with those officers and the universities. So we plan to co-create the innovation priorities work with them. And just to say, I do want to thank the universities and the Innovation Advisory Board. The technical knowledge for this bid is impressive, and we've had to have inputs from both universities. So they've been equally excellent as challenging, which is how I like it.
Thank you. Councillor Khan?
Thank you. So we support this bid to support the innovation in the advanced manufacturing sector, but what are EMCCA's plans to support growth and innovation in our life sciences and creative and digital sectors? Because obviously on page 151 of the report, it indicates that life sciences and medtech are likely to be investment priorities in the bids in West Midlands and West Yorkshire and Leicestershire. Now strong sector. What we don't want to do is be left behind. So we've spoken about the importance of EMCCA. So I just want to know what your plans are with regards to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for that question. It's really important. So as part of the innovation priorities framework that the paper talks about, we hope to have roadmaps for each of our high-value clusters. Cluster development plans, essentially. So working with partners to understand what are the interventions that that particular cluster needs to develop, and they will be different. So we need to understand them so we don't put in one-size-fits-all kind of policies and bids. So we will be working with partners on those kind of cluster roadmaps going forward. That might involve some investment from EMCCA. We've done the EMIS roadmaps on advanced manufacturing and clean energy so far, so we're looking at whether that process will work for medtech and life sciences and creative and digital industries. So we absolutely plan and expect to bring forward cluster plans for each of the sectors.
Thank you. If there's no other questions or comments, can I ask you to approve the recommendations as set out? All great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Diana. That brings us to the end of a very efficient meeting. Very efficient meeting today. And can I thank you for your time, for your contributions, for your engagement, and for your support. The next meeting will be held on the 9th of March. Location to be confirmed. But I believe it may well be in Nottinghamshire. Can I invite those present to join us over lunch as well. Thank you very much, and conclude the meeting.
Make a suggestion?
Sorry. Yes.
Can we have a photograph?
A photograph. Have a photograph. Thank you very much.